You don't need a better script. You need a better reason for people to talk to you. In previous videos that I've done, I talked about how important it is first that you have a focus on setting appointments, not just making contacts. And then in another video, I talked about how before you can set an appointment, you've got to get some connection or rapport with people. Well, in this video, we're going to talk about the next step in setting appointments, because after you have the focus of setting appointments, you've got some connection and rapport built with the people. The next piece of this is you've got to create value, or you've got to somehow make the person curious to want to meet with you. Because without the value or them being curious, they don't see any reason for meeting with you. So if you just said to somebody, hey, let's get together, if they don't see any value in doing that, or they're not curious about what it is that you have to say that is going to help them, they're not going to set an appointment with you. But I promise you, if you will create value and or make the people curious, you're going to set more appointments. So let me give you a quick example that I got out of the book that was written by Thomas Fries. It's on the Secrets of Question-Based Selling is the name of the book. In that book, he talks about if you're going to leave messages for people, it's got to make them curious. See, most of us leave a message where we just say, blah, 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 call me back. And that's what your buyer or your seller potential clients hear is blah, 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 delete. You don't want that. You've got to do something to make them curious. And in the book, what he talks about is he says a real estate agent was calling and talking to a farmer or trying to get farmers to sell their land so that he could then help a developer develop those into homes. Well, he would call and say, hey, this is so-and-so real estate agent. If you're thinking about buying or selling your land, let me know. I got developers that are interested. Nobody ever calls him back. Well, what he said is you got to make people curious. And so he called and left a message and said this, I've got your tax records in my hand and have some questions for you. Please call me back. See, if you make people curious, they're going to call back. One of the things that I like to do when I am trying to decide if somebody is ghosting me or not, like if they're interested or they're not interested because they're not calling me back, is I love to call and leave a message that just says this. Hey, I've got a really important question for you. Give me a call back. See, if you say to somebody, I've got a really important question for you, give me a call back, and they don't call you back, if they don't call you back, what they are telling you is, I'm not interested. Because typically they're going to call back. Now, you're probably thinking to yourself, okay, so they call me back. What is my question? Well, when they call you back, the question is, were you still thinking about selling your home, or were you still wanting to buy a home in the next 3 to 6 months, or whatever it is? But your question is about that. In another class and video that I do, I will talk about with your sphere of influence, how the same kind of a thing. You might call them and say, I've got a really important question for you. And then they'll call you back and you're going to say, hey, are you still interested in staying on this select group of people that I have that I keep updated about real estate? But so keep in mind, if people aren't curious, they're not going to respond back to you. Well, now let's get into and talk about in your prospecting, how do you create value? Well, what you've got to do is you've got to do something that separates you from every other agent out there. So one of the things that I like to do with buyers and sellers is I like to ask them, have you had a chance to sit down and talk to an agent about what's really going on in the market today? And I always emphasize the word what's really going on in the market today, because it implies to them then when you do that, that maybe what they have heard about what's going on in the market might not be exactly what is going on in the market today. Therefore, hopefully makes them a little curious, or they could see the value in us sitting down and talking to them a little bit. Now, another thing that I like to do with buyers is I like to say to them, if I'm prospecting for a potential buyer, is I love saying to them, I have access to properties before they hit the market. See, by telling them I have access before properties hit the market, I am creating some value. There's value in me because I have access to these properties. The really good deals sell typically before they even hit the market. So if you can emphasize that to people and just tell them that, hey, really good deals are going to sell before they hit the market. I network with agents in our community, in your office, in our state, however you want to say it. But I network with agents to find the really good deals before they hit the market. And so you're letting them know there is value in working with you on that. Let me give you another idea that a friend of mine told me a while back, and I love this, is he said that what he uses is he will say to either, like with a for sale by owner, let's talk about them for a second, because with a for sale by owner, why do they want to sell their home for sale by owner? Well, the reason that they sell their home for sale by owner is they want to save the commission. Well, in actuality, though, what do they really want? They want to net more money. So totally different video, but one of the things to do is make sure that you emphasize to a for sale by owner that the idea is not about not paying a commission. The idea is about netting more money. So you've got to change their focus from being on that it's about not paying a commission to really what it's about is the purpose of them doing is they want to net more money. Well, if I could help them see that there's value in using me versus not using me and they're net more money by using me, they now can see the value. So let me give you this idea. One of the things you can do is to say to a for sale by owner is, have you considered how you might use points as a way to leverage an offer? Now, that sounds really technical and really like what? Which notice the for sale by owner is probably going to be like curious of like, what are you talking about? Using points as a way to leverage an offer? Now, I want to be clear that you're probably not going to do this very often in an offer, but it is a way of showing your value and making them curious about you is by saying, have you considered how you might use points as a way to leverage an offer? And they're going to say, well, I don't know what you're talking about. And I'm going to say, that's exactly the reason we need to get together is so that I can walk you through it. So now notice, though, I am not going to tell them either on their doorstep or on the phone. I'm not going to tell them what that means to use points as a way to leverage an offer because again, my whole purpose is I want to set the appointment. And what I don't want to do is give away all my trade secrets. And so sometimes I'll even tell them that is, look, I don't want to give away all my trade secrets until you and I have had a chance to sit down and talk a little bit more about what it is you're wanting to accomplish and see if it's something that I can help you with, which all that does again is makes them even more curious of what is it that you have to offer. Now, just for you guys so that you're aware of this and why I say you're probably not going to use it very often, but what it would be is having the buyer, whether you're representing the buyer or you're representing this for sale by owner now as their agent, their listing agent, and an offer comes in, the way you would use points to leverage an offer would be if that buyer comes in and asks you, the seller, to pay their closing costs, what you're going to do is recommend that they go back to their lender, have their lender increase the interest rate by 0.5% or so. And again, work with your lender on that, but increase their rate by about 0.5%. Then the lender pays the closing costs for the buyer and the seller doesn't have to. Well, see, a lot of times that's going to cover your commission as the listing agent right there just by doing and offering that service. Now, like I said, probably not going to happen very often that people are going to do it. But let me tell you what the benefits are for potentially the buyer and potentially for the lender and why the lender will get on your side of that. That's a great idea. But so for the buyer, the reason that could work well is especially in a competitive market, what you're doing now is you're actually being able to offer a price that is going to net the seller more money without having to have them pay your closing costs. So it can be advantageous for the buyer. And you might be saying, yeah, but Russ, now their payment's higher for the next 30 years. This is where the lender then comes involved and loves the idea is what you typically would do is have them do that. They may have to wait 6 months. Again, talk to your lender to find out. They may have to wait 6 months, maybe a year even, who knows? But what they do then is refinance. Now, again, I know sometimes people are like, yeah, but that's not going to work very often and it's probably not going to be great. And I can see all of the comments that I'm going to get below about how this is stupid and all that stuff. But again, keep in mind, the idea behind it is not about you're going to do it. The idea is to showing there's value in you as a real estate agent. You know stuff that they probably don't know. And what that's going to do is it allows you to then get in front of the client. And like I said, I usually will tell the seller when I get in front of them, look, this is probably something that is not necessarily going to work every time. It only works in the right scenario. But this is an example of a way that using me as an agent is going to actually net you more money, even though you're paying my commission. Hopefully you can see the value in that. And so really what I would like to challenge you to do is sit down and figure out what are ways that you could bring value to people or make them curious. Because if you can do that, what's going to happen is they will set more appointments with you because they're curious or they see the value of talking to you.